What up, YouTube? It's your favorite bean eating mofo, fresh off the banana boat. Big Lou, tapping on in with what it do with Big Lou. If this is the first time you're coming to the channel, it'd be highly appreciated if you sub, like, and share the channel with your family, friends, folks, gente, peoples, associates, asocios, panas, amigos, pals, buddies. And also be sure to comment. I respond back to all the comments. Let me give it a couple of minutes, a couple of seconds, excuse me. What up, Roscoe? Watching I noticed this I noticed there's some soccer on today. I'm not really sure where let me see. Not really sure what team's playing, but let me see. There are a lot of soccer going on. MU versus WHU Premier League, whatever that is. But also American football is today, so I'm hoping my team, the Raiders, could stay on the winning streak and win another game today. See what happens. We're gonna go. This is gonna be about, as you can see from the thumbnail, two legendary boxers. There was a lot of excuse me. There was a lot of hype behind the build-up and the build-up to this fight and the hype surrounding the fighters. Well, for Sugar Ray Leonard, there was big hype around him even before he became pro. It was kind of like how De La Hoya, and some of these other guys like Shakur Stevenson and some of these other guys had big hype around him coming out of the Olympics. Yeah, I'm watching the Manchester United game now. And my team Celtic won too. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard was the 1976 gold medalist. So there was a lot of big hype surrounding him before he came into the being a pro. And then you know what I mean? And he's both these fighters have fought at multiple divisions. But we'll start with Sugar Ray Leonard. So Sugar Ray Leonard was born Ray Charles Leonard, May 17, 1956, in Wilmington, North Carolina. His nickname obviously is Sugar. He fought orthodox, and he fought at welterweight, super welterweight, which is the same as junior middleweight, super middleweight, and light heavyweight. So you're talking about starting at 147 up until 175. He fought. He finished his career with a total of 40 pro fights, 36 wins, 25 by knockout, 3 losses, and 1 draw. So like I mentioned, he was the Olympic gold medalist in 1976, which was in Montreal that year. The year before that, in the Pan American Games, he won a gold medal in 1975 at Mexico City, and he fought at both events. He fought at junior welterweight, which is 140. So everybody knows that these two guys right here are part of the Four Kings, right? Which is excuse me, which is Marvin Marvelous Haglar, Roberto Las Manos de Pierda, excuse me, which means hands of stone, Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Tommy Hitman Hearns, right? But I mentioned that Wilfredo Benitez should be in that too. He should be the 5 Kings, even though the only thing is Benitez never fought Haglar, but he fought Leonard, he fought Hearns, and he fought Duran. So they're all Hall of Fame boxers, all 4 of them. Sugar Ray Leonard was the first boxer to earn more than $100 million in purses, and he was named Boxer of the Decade in the 80s. Ring Magazine named him Fighter of the Year in 1979 and 1981, and Boxers Writing Association of America named him Fighter of the Year in 1976, 79, and 81. In 2002, Sugar Ray Leonard was voted by the Ring as the 9th greatest fighter of the last 80 years, excuse me. And in 2016, he was voted by the Ring to be the greatest living fighter. Box Rec ranks him as the 14th greatest boxer of all time, pound for pound. So we'll give a little bit of background of his childhood and stuff, early life. So he was the 5th of 7 kids of Cicero and Gedda Leonard. And I already mentioned he was born in North Carolina, and he was named after Ray Charles because that was his mother's favorite singer. And then the family moved to Washington, D.C. when he was 3, and they settled permanently in Palmer Park, Maryland, when he was 10. His father worked at a supermarket, night manager, and his mother was a nurse. He attended Parkdale High School, and they said he was a shy kid. And aside from the time he nearly drowned in a creek during a flood, his childhood was uneventful. He stayed home a lot, reading comic books, playing with his dog. His mother said he never talked much, so we never could tell what he was thinking. His mom said, but she never had no problems with him, and she never had to go to the school to talk to nobody about him or nothing. Okay, so. So when he decided to turn pro, he was introduced to his trainer, introduced to Mike Trainer, a friend of his who was an attorney. Trainer talked 24 of his friends and clients into underwriting Leonard's career with an investment of $21,000 to be repaid within 4 years at 8% interest. Trainer then made Leonard the sole stockholder in Sugar Ray Leonard, Inc. Angelo Dundee, Muhammad Ali's trainer, was brought in to be Leonard's trainer and manager. Many of the people being considered wanted absolute control, and they cut somewhere near the manager's traditional 33%. But Dundee had a different proposition. Although he would prescribe the training procedures, he would leave the day-to-day work to Dave Jacobs and Janks Morton. He would also choose Leonard's opponents for his services. Dundee would get 15% of Leonard's purse. Leonard made his professional debut on February 5th, 1977, before a crowd of 10,000 people at the Civic Center in Baltimore. He was paid $40,000 for his fight. His opponent was Luis the Bull Vega, whom he defeated a 6-round unanimous decision. After the fight, Leonard paid back his $21,000 loan to the investors. In his 14th professional fight, Leonard fought his first world-ranked opponent, Floyd Mayweather Sr., who was ranked 17th. The fight took place on September 9, 1978. Leonard won by a 10th round knockout. A month later, Leonard defeated his old amateur nemesis, Randy Shields, by a 10-round unanimous decision. Okay, later on in August, he knocked out Pete Ranzani in 4 rounds, and he won the NAPF welterweight title, which that stands for, I believe, North American Boxing Federation. The following month, he made his first title defense against Andy Price. Price, an up-and-coming contender who was sponsored by Marvin Gaye, had a reputation for prolonged bouts and early fights, and was believed by sports reporters to defeat or give a long fight to Leonard. Leonard knocked him out in the first round, advancing his record of 25-0 with 16 knockouts. So here we go. Here's one of the he fights Benitez. Benitez at the time was a WBC welterweight champ, and he also, to this day, is the youngest fighter to ever win a world title at 17 years old. What a fight. The Fantastic Four were excellent. My dad brought me up watching. Yeah, they were. Hi, Blue. Good news. Big Chicago Maggot deleted most of his videos, and he is on the run. He is a punk boy dog. Fuck that dude, man. So he fought So here it is. So November 30th, 1979, at Caesar's Palace in Vegas, he fights Wilfredo Benitez, who's one of my country, my little island's greatest fighters of all time, right? Um, crowd the crowd capacity was about 4,600, and Leonard received $1 million to fight Benitez, the two-division champion, with a record of 38-0-1, and he received 1.2 million. And it's a damn shame. It's sad now that Benitez is like, he's all crippled up, and he lives in Chicago now. His mother took care of him for many years because he's bedridden. And then when his mother passed away, his sister took over, and they live in Chicago now in one of the ghettos. It was a highly competitive and tactical battle. In the first round, Leonard rocked Benitez with a left hook that came off a jab and right cross. Late in the third, Leonard dropped Benitez on the seat of his pants with a stiff left jab. More embarrassed and hurt, Benitez got up quickly. Benitez started improving in the fourth, slipping numerous punches and fading the range with his right hand. I wasn't aware I was in a championship early because I hit him so easy, Sugar Ray said, clowning, right? But then adjusted to my style. It was like looking in a mirror. In the sixth round, there was an accidental clash of heads, which opened a cut on the forehead of Benitez. Blood flowed down his forehead and the bridge of his nose, but stayed out of his eyes. Leonard landed the harder punches and had Benitez hurt several times late in the fight, but Leonard couldn't put him away. Benitez was very slick. No one can make me miss punches like that. Yeah, so they called Wilfredo Benitez El Radar because he was able to see the punches and he would slip a lot of punches. He had a great defense. Going into the final round, Leonard led by scores of 137, 130, 137, 133, 136, 134. The two went toe-to-toe in the 15th round. Late in the round, Leonard dropped Benitez with the left. He got up, but after a few more punches, the referee stopped the fight. The time was 2:54 of round 15. Boxing Writers Association of America, So Leonard won the fight. Leonard made his first title defense in Landover, Maryland on March 31st, 1980. His opponent was Davy Boy Green, a British challenger that had a record of 33-2. In the fourth round, Leonard knocked Green out with a devastating left hook. Leonard called it the hardest single punch I ever threw. On June 20th, 1980, Leonard returned to the Olympic Stadium in Montreal to defend his title against Roberto Duran. The crowd was about 45,000 people. And Duran, who had been around many years already, he was already a veteran and probably a Hall of Famer at that time. He was the former undisputed world lightweight champion for 6.5 years, and he had a record of 71 wins and only 1 loss, and was the #1 welterweight contender and considered the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world at that time, right? So Duran received $1.5 million, and Leonard, working for a percentage of closed circuit gate as well as a guaranteed, received over $9 million. Angelo Dundee, he had counseled got at Leonard and counseled him to box, to move side to side and not get caught on the ropes. But Leonard decided to go toe to toe with Duran, which was a mistake. Duran ended up putting him on him, beating him up the whole fight. Because Leonard decided to detour from his normal style, of sticking and moving and being a master, at his craft, which is boxing. He stepped away from that, and so he got beat up pretty good by Roberto Duran. So Roberto Duran took his belt, and and then and then they fought again. And at this time, Sugar Ray was fighting Sugar Ray's fight, and he didn't detour from that this time. And he was fighting, he was boxing, he was sticking and moving. He was doing the normal Sugar Ray Leonard, tactics, right? And Roberto couldn't get nothing going, and he ended up quitting on his stool. The legendary famous no mas, no more. So he quit. But this is what I forgot to say too. When when Duran went back to Panama after beating Sugar Ray Leonard, he was well celebrated by his countrymen. This time when he went back after quitting, they kind of, a lot of them turned their backs on him or upset with him. You know what I mean? And when he talks about it, he says that he was gonna, he figured that, he whooped him the first time, and he gave Sugar Ray Leonard a rematch. So he just quit on the stool, figuring, well, he'll give me my rematch. Well, they ended up fighting for many, many, many years later, and so it worked. It didn't work out to his advantage, on that one. Okay. Let's see. There's a lot of guys that you probably won't recognize their names. Yeah, Duran is the GOAT. Mayweather, his bitch ass wouldn't have won a title if he fought Nate. Oh no, no doubt. Now his uncle was fighting some of these guys back in the day. His uncle fought Pernell Whitaker, Cesar Chavez a few times. You know what I mean? So that was his uncle was a beast, and his uncle used to come in the ring with the charra and the Mexican hats because he used to beat a lot of Mexican fighters. But I have above him, I got Sugar Ray Robinson. I got Sugar Ray Robinson above Mayweather and pound for pound, greatest pound for pound. I got, Roberto Duran and Julio Cesar Chavez. The numbers don't lie, man. So we got the showdown. So the next fight is a showdown. Yeah, and plus Sweet Pete got robbed in that fight with Chavez. You know what I mean? It is what it is, But so now fast forward to the showdown, which is the thumbnail. I'll just give a quick little rundown. So Jose Pepino Cuevas was the WBA welterweight champion for years. He was demolishing everybody that he fought, and he wanted to fight Sugar Ray Leonard. I remember it was after a Pepino Cuevas fight. Sugar Ray Leonard was there. He might have been commentating at that time it might have been Howard Cosell that was there. I don't remember who that was. I think it was Howard Cosell. And they sat next to each other, and Pepino was like, I want Sugar Ray Leonard. I want Sugar Ray Leonard. Well, he didn't end up fighting Sugar Ray Leonard, but he ended up fighting Tommy Hearns. And Tommy Hearns ended up knocking him out, Pepino Cuevas out. And I think they fought in Detroit. And there went, Pepino Cuevas after that, never came back. And he ended up losing a few more times after that. But I guess you could say Tommy Hearns exposed him, I guess. Okay, so the first fight between Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard was called the Showdown. And it was fought on September 16th, 1981 at Caesar's Palace in Vegas to unify the WBC welterweight title, which Sugar Ray had, and Tommy Hearns had the WBA belt. And it was a crowd of about 20. It was over 20,000 people there. Hearns made about $5 million, and Leonard made $11 million. And the fight grossed over $35 million. The live gate was $5.9 million, and the revenue from pay-per-view was $7.5 million. And I wasn't even aware when I read that. I wasn't even aware that they had pay-per-view back then. I thought, from my memory, first time I remember pay-per-view was around the Mike Tyson era, 88, 87, I thought, and also like what do you call that? Wrestling. What's up, JM? SJ, excuse me. Yeah, Raiders are playing right now. I'm watching it. So at the time, Hearns was 32-0 with 30 knockouts, and he, like I had just mentioned, he won the WBA welterweight belt, beating Cuevas in 1980 in Detroit, and he made 3 successful title defenses before fighting Leonard. He beat Luis Primera, Randy Shields, and Pablo Baez. The fight, it was said that the fight was, I watched the fight, but I had to go back and watch it. What's up, Crusted? I had to go back and watch it because obviously I was only at that time, 3 years old. I just turned 3. So, obviously I don't remember that. I can remember 84, but I can't remember 81. Maybe even 83, I can remember some little things here and there, but majority of my memory goes back to about 84, 85. So the fight began as expected. Leonard boxing from distance and Tommy Hearns stalking. So Tommy Hearns, people don't know Tommy Hearns was 6'1" and he weighed 147. So he was like a freak of nature somewhat. Now you got that dude out there now. He's 6'6", weighing 147, 140. Fenaro, I forgot. I think it's Fundura or something like that. So at this time, you're talking 40 years ago. It was like a freak of nature. You know what I mean? On TV or select TV. So yeah, so they started like they figured he was gonna be boxing from a distance and Tommy Hearns stalking him, and then Sugar Ray had difficulty with Hearns because, like I just mentioned, Hearns was long, he was tall in stature and he had long arms, and Sugar Ray started swelling under his left eye, and Hearns had built a considerable lead on the scorecards, and then Leonard got more aggressive and he hurt Hearns, and I think I want to say it was like the middle fight, somewhere around probably the 6th or 7th round. He hurt him with the left hook to the chin, and then he started battering him round 6. I think it was 6 and 7, pretty much the middle of the fight. But then Hearns regrouped, and he made some adjustments, and then Hearns started to stick and move, and he started to pile up points again. Right, the roles reversed. And Leonard became the stalker and Hearns became the boxer. The fight it was billed as a classic all the way up before, after, and still to this day. It was between power, knockout artist, and the best boxer puncher in the middleweight division that they had seen in a long time. And, it was a tactical fight. Hearns ended up looking good in the championship rounds from 9 to 12. On all the scorecards, and then I don't know if you guys are aware of it, but for that clip of Angelo Dundee telling Sugar Ray Leonard, "You're blowing it, son. You're blowing it." I don't know if you guys remember that. So that's when that was caught on that fight. Leonard had a bad swollen left eye, and he came out roaring for the 13th round after hurting Hearns with the right. Let me take that back because I said the championship rounds 9 through 12. No, the championship rounds were 13, 14, 15 because at this time they were still fighting 15 rounds. So I misspoke there on that one. Sorry about that. So after hurting Hearns with the right, Leonard exploded with a combination of punches, and then Hearns' legs were clearly gone. After more pressure from Leonard, he bundled through the ropes. No knockdown was given as it wasn't a punch that sent him through the ropes. Hearns' manager managed to rise, but was dropped by a flurry of hard punches near the end of the round. In round 14, after staggering Hearns with overhand right, Leonard pinned Hearns against the ropes, where he unleashed another furious combinations, prompting referee to stop the contest and award Sugar Ray the winner, and he became the unified welterweight champion with the WBC and WBA belts. And Hearns was leading on the scorecards at 124, 122, 125, 122, and 125, 121 when the fight was stopped. So, of course, he's going to want his get-backs, right? He's going to want his run-backs. But unfortunately, I let it be known now. Because it still falls in the decade of the 80s. So, you know what? I'll leave that off, and I'll bring it up when the time comes. So, after the fight, there was controversy due to the scoring of rounds 6 and 7. Even though Leonard dominated, hurting Hearns and battering him, all 3 judges gave rounds to Leonard by a 10-9 margin. Many felt that the 10-point scoring system was not properly used, and those rounds should have been a 10-8. Also considered the stoppage premature. Veteran ringside commentator Don Dunphy said they're stopping the fight. I don't believe it. Hearns was ahead on points. However, Emmanuel Stewart, Hearns' manager and trainer, said, "I felt the referee was justified in stopping the fight. Tommy did not have enough energy to make it through the fight." So that fight was named Fight of the Year by Ring. Leonard was named Fighter of the Year by the Ring magazine and the Boxer Writers Association of America. He was also named Athlete of the Year by ABC's Wild World of Sports and Sportsman of the Year by Sports Illustrated. So then he retired, and then he came back in February 15th of 82. He defended the unified title against Bruce Finch, WBC fourth round contender in Reno, Nevada. He knocked him out in the third round. And that's when they found out he had another fight in Buffalo, New York, and then after that he found out he had a detached retina, and that fight was canceled in Buffalo, New York. And he had to have surgery to repair the retina in May of 82. November of 82, Leonard invited Haglar and other boxing dignitaries to a charity event in Baltimore, Maryland, to hear him announce whether he would continue his career. Standing in a boxing ring with Howard Cosell, the master of ceremonies, Leonard announced his retirement, saying a bout with Haglar would unfortunately never happen. Leonard maintained his eye was fully healed, but that he just didn't want to box anymore. Missing the limelight and competition, Leonard announced in December of 83 that he was returning. So he came back. He boasted that he would have a couple of top 10 10-round bouts and then take on Milton McCrory and Donald Curry, Duran, Hearns, and finally Haglar. This decision was met with a torrent of criticism from the fans and media, who felt Leonard was taking unnecessary risks with his surgically repaired eye. But some guys just can't stay away. I don't know if it was a money issue with him or he just wanted to get in there and compete. Some people have a big burning desire for competition, and it's obviously sometimes, as we've seen over the years with fighters such as Evander Holyfield, Muhammad Ali, different guys, where they have to keep fighting because they're broke. Unfortunately, they didn't use their money. They didn't, use their money right. So he fought. He fought Howard, and then excuse me, and then in '86 he fought Haglar. At this time, Haglar was the middleweight champion for many years, and Sugar Ray went up to fight him at middleweight. And that fight, it was called the Super Fight, the King of the Ring, and it was scheduled for April 6, 1987, Caesar Palace. Leonard was guaranteed $11 million, and Haglar was guaranteed $12 million. Haglar was a heavy favorite. The odds started at 4-1 and then settled at 3-1. A paying crowd of almost 12. It was about 12,000 people at the live gate of 6.2 million. According to Bob Arum, the fight grossed $78 million, which equals to around $180 million in 2020. The original fight plan was for Leonard to go toe-to-toe with Haglar and try to cut him, but the plan changed about 5 days before the fight. Leonard got hit by sparring partner Quincy Taylor and was badly buckled. He almost knocked me out, Leonard ended up, admitting later. After that, Leonard decided to box Haglar. Many were surprised that Haglar, natural southpaw, opened the fight boxing orthodox. After the quick and slick, Leonard won the first 2 rounds on all 3 scorecards. Leonard started the third round as a southpaw. Haglar started as a southpaw, excuse me. Haglar did better, but Leonard's superior speed and boxing skill still allowed him to control the fight. I will say this. I remember watching that fight as a kid, and then I watched it a few different times after, years later. And I still feel the same way from when I watched it as a kid and when I watched it afterwards, because Marvelous Haglar was always one of my favorite fighters. Excuse me. And I feel that he won. As far as, I've always had this outlook on things. If you're the champion, because Leonard wasn't the champion, he came out of retirement. Marvelous Haglar was a champion. He was a champion for years at the middleweight division. I've always felt like this, that the champion has to get either knocked out to lose his belt, or he has to be made silly. Just get whooped bad the whole fight. Okay, he might not have been dropped or knocked out, but the opponent just made him look silly, outboxed him bad, and beat him to the punch And I don't feel Sugar Ray Leonard did that. I feel Sugar Ray Leonard did what people got all ooh and ahh'd about with him was he would throw a flurry of punches towards the end of the round with the last maybe 10, 15 seconds. And a lot of it was hitting the guy in the glove, but it would excite the crowd. And I don't know, where the judges were positioned, at the time, or not where they were positioned. Excuse me, or where the fight was actually positioned in the ring at the time. So what they're seeing is, from I don't know if Sugar Ray's body's blocking them, but you see just a flurry of punches. But it's just at the end of the round, and it doesn't even it don't even it ain't doing no damage. And that's how I always believed. I still believe that way to this day, that the champion needs to get knocked. Okay, for example, the first Fury and Deontay Wilder fight. Deontay Wilder dropped him twice, right? He's the champ. He's the WBC heavyweight champ. He dropped him twice, right? And I don't think Fury did anything special in that fight that made him like he outboxed him for it to be a draw. I think Wilder should have won that fight. He dropped him twice. You know what I mean? And I think that was enough for him to win. But that's just my perception. That's my outlook on things. It doesn't mean it's official. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean any of that. So at the end of the fight, Leonard threw a total of 629 punches and he landed 306, which is close to half, while Haglar threw 792 and landed 291. Leonard was awarded a controversial split decision. Dave Moretti scored at 115-113 for Leonard, and Joe Filippo had it 115-113 for Haglar, and Jose Guerra had it 118-110 for Leonard. 118-110. Are you kidding me? The other two guys had it what would that be? 7 rounds to 5, something like that. No, actually, these were still. I don't remember if that was a 15-round fight still at the time, or they had changed it. The ringside press and broadcast media scorecards were Howard Cosell had it 117-112 Leonard. LA Times had it 117-111 Leonard. Associated Press had it 117-112 Haglar. Newsday had it 115-114 Haglar. New York Daily News had it 117-111 Leonard. Baltimore Sun had it 7 rounds to 5 Leonard. 115-113. Boston Globe had it 115-113 Haglar. New York Daily News had it 117-112 Leonard. New York Post had it 112-114 a draw. Another Boston Globe writer had it 117-111 Leonard. New York Post 2, another New York Post writer had it 115-113 Haglar. New York Times, another New York Times writer had it 114-114 a draw. Boston Herald had it 116-113 Leonard. CBS had it 115-113 Leonard. Oakland Tribune had it 117-112 Leonard. Philadelphia Daily News 116-112 Leonard. CBS, another CBS writer had it 115-114 Haglar. Chicago Sun-Times had it 115-114 Haglar. Chicago Tribune had it 115-113 Haglar. So it was a mix. It's a big mix with all the different press and media outlets. The fight was named Fight of the Year and Upset of the Year by Ring Magazine. And you know what sucked about that? That he never, Marvelous Haglar never came back after that. He quit. He quit. And this guy had you got to think about it too. He had a rough, I'll touch more on it when I get to him, but in his profile. But he had it rough. The way he was done. I don't, if I remember correctly, he didn't get a championship opportunity at the title until he was like in his almost close to 50th fight. And then when he did outclass the guy in the ring, it was called a draw by when he fought Vito Antuofermo. It was called a draw, and he clearly put hands on him, right? And then he went to England and fought the guy who ended up Alan Minter, I think his name was. He ended up taking the title from I think it was Vito, and then Haglar went over there and whooped him. He won the belt, but then everybody started throwing stuff at him into the ring. And he had to leave and didn't even get to grab his belt. It had to be shipped to him later on. So then I think Sugar Ray Leonard ends up retiring again after that fight, and then he comes back against Donnie Lalonde. I don't know if anybody remembers him. He was a light heavyweight champion at the time, and so he made another comeback. This fight was in Caesar Palace, right? And he fought for Donnie Lalonde's WBC light heavyweight title, and the newly created WBC Super Middleweight Championship, which meant that Lalonde had to make 168. Many were critical of the fact that Lalonde's light heavyweight title was on the line. So that was something that I wasn't aware of, that Lalonde was the light heavyweight champion, WBC, which is 175. That's the weight division, 175, right? You can't weigh heavier than 175. But they were also fighting for a new weight class that was made, super middleweight, which was 168, and it was for a vacant title that they just came up with, WBC. So the Lalonde had to make 168. So Leonard now stepped up 168. So it was 8 more pounds in his last bout with Haglar. Lalonde at the time was 31-2 with 26 knockouts, and he was guaranteed at least $6 million, and Sugar Ray was guaranteed $10 million. So you can imagine that every time you retire, man, you come back and you win. Every time you come back, you're guaranteed these big purses. You know what I mean? I mean, at the time, $10 million is a lot. You got guys now that still don't make that in a fight, And this is 1987. So this was Sugar Ray's first professional fight without Angelo Dundee. Because I guess he had worked with Leonard for many years without a contract, and now he was asking for a contract. So somehow their relationship soured. Lalonde was very tall, and his size was awkwardness, and it troubled Leonard. Right, 4th round with the right hand to the top of Leonard's head dropped him for just the 2nd time in his career. Early in the night, Lalonde hurt Leonard with a right to the chin. Leonard fired back and hurt Lalonde with a right. He drove him to the ropes and unleashed a furious assault. Lalonde tried to tie up Leonard, but got dropped with a powerful left hook. He rose, but soon again, down again, and the fight was stopped. At the time, the judges, Chuck Giampa and Frank Marty, had Leonard ahead on scores of 77-74 and 77-75, respectively, and the 3rd judge had it Lalonde ahead 76-75. What's up, Mark? Okay. Then 8 years later, he gets the rematch, Tommy Hearns with Sugar Ray, and he's gonna defend the WBC middleweight championship in a rematch at Caesar's Palace. It was promoted as the War. Hearns was guaranteed $11 million, and Leonard was guaranteed $14 million. Hearns dropped Leonard with the right cross in the 3rd round, but Leonard came back and battered Hearns around the ring in the 5th. Early in the 7th round, Hearns hurt Leonard but punched himself out, going for the knockout. With Hearns fatigued, Leonard ended up coming back and finished the end of that round. He finished the end of that round strong. 9th and 10th were good rounds for Leonard, but he ran into trouble in the 11th round. 3 booming rights from Hearns sent Leonard down for the 2nd time in the fight. Knowing he needed a big finish, Leonard fought furiously and had a big final round. The judges scored the fight a draw, and Leonard retained the title. Now, see, there we go again. Good morning, Tim Hennessy. There we go again. How do you put somebody down 2 times and you still don't win the fight? And you obviously won a lot of rounds. This is just another example how, it's just bullcrap. You know what I'm saying? So it was called a draw. So Sugar Ray and Hearns fought twice. First time in 1981, he got beat. Leonard won. Second one, 1989, and it was considered a draw. You know what I'm saying? Um, the judges scored the fight a draw, and Leonard retained the title, like I just mentioned. So Judge Jerry Ross scored the fight 113-112 for Hearns. Judge Tom Kazmarek scored it 113-112 for Leonard, and Judge Dalby Shirley scored it 112-112. Shirley was the only judge to give Leonard a 10-8 margin in the 12th. See, which don't make no sense because a 10-8 round would suggest that either you got the guy got dropped. That if you get dropped, it automatically makes it a 10-8 round, most likely, or you just got whooped really, really bad. And I don't think that was the case there. So you imagine if he would have scored it 10-9 for Leonard that last round, then it would have been he would have had it 113-112 for Hearns. You know what I'm saying? So it's a bunch of bullshit on the scorecard. Sometimes they need to do something and figure out a better way to score these fights. And then December of '89, we had Leonard Duran 3. Uno Mas, it was called, the fight, right? Leonard defended against Duran his reigning WBC middleweight title, and Duran was guaranteed $7.6 million, and Leonard arrangement guaranteed him $13 million for the fight. For the Duran fight, Leonard cut his entourage from 21 to 6. Dave Jacobs was one of the people let go, leaving Correa as the sole trainer. Correa was instructed not to spare the whip for the first time in a long time. I allowed someone to push me, Sugar Ray said, right? So the fight took place at the New Mirage Hotel in Vegas. Leonard used a lot of lateral movement and won by a lopsided 12-round unanimous decision over a listless Duran. The scores were 120, 110, 119, 109, 116, 111. In a fight that many considered to be very boring, both fighters were booed often by the fans, and many left the arena before the decision was announced. So it was one of them deals where it backfired on him. You know what I mean? And Sugar Ray Leonard, that ends the decade of the 80s because these profiles are about the 80s. So that ends the decade of the 80s. We'll give a little bit about it. Excuse me. So he does a lot of charity work now. He probably, I know he does charity work. Oh, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation. He's been awarded a lot of different things. He's a advocacy against child molestation. So that's Sugar Ray Leonard. So we'll talk about Tommy Hearns a little bit now. Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns is a very decorated fighter. Tommy Hearns is he's a five-time 5-division champion. He's a 5-division champion, 5 weight classes. So as we know, he's nicknamed. First, he was nicknamed also the Motor City Cobra, but more famously, he's known by the Hitman. He's the first boxer in history to win world titles in 5 weight divisions: welterweight, welterweight, super welterweight / junior middleweight. It's the same thing, 154 pounds. Middleweight 160, super middleweight 168, and light heavyweight 175. But he did his a different way. What's up, John Cabrera? So like I mentioned, he fought at welterweight, welterweight, super welterweight, junior middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and cruiserweight. Sometimes he's listed at 6'1", sometimes 6'2", 78-inch reach, and he fought orthodox. He was born in Grand Junction, Tennessee on October 18, 1958, but he was raised in Detroit. He has 67 total fights, 61 wins, 48 by knockout, 5 losses, and 1 draw. He was named the Fighter of the Year, and by Ring and Boxer Association of America in 1980 and 1984. The latter following his knockout of Roberto Duran. Hearns was also known as a devastating puncher throughout his career, even at cruiserweight. Despite having climbed up 5 weight classes, he is ranked 18th on the ring's list of 100 greatest punchers of all time. Currently number 78 in box ranking of the greatest pound-for-pound boxers of all time. On June 10, 2012, he was inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So like I mentioned, he was born in Grand Junction, Tennessee on October 1858, the youngest of 3 children in his mother's first marriage. With their second marriage, 6 children joined the first 3. On his own, Mrs. Hearns raised Tommy and his siblings in Grand Junction until Tommy was 5. Then they moved to Michigan, Detroit, Michigan. Hearns had an amateur career of 155 wins and 8 losses. In '77, he won the National Amateur Athletic Union Light Welterweight Championships, defeating Bobby Joe Young of Ohio in the finals. He also won the '77 National Golden Gloves Junior Welterweight Championship. So he began his professional career in Detroit under the tutelage of Emanuel Stewart. Now, anybody that knows Emanuel Stewart, he's been around a very long time. He's coached a lot of guys. Lennox Lewis being one, the Klitschko, a lot of champions over the years. Stewart had changed Hearns from a light-hitting amateur boxer to one of the most devastating punchers in boxing history. He won 6 major world titles in 5 weight classes during his pro career, defeating future boxing Hall of Famers such as Jose Pepino Cuevas, Wilfredo Benitez, Virgil Hill, and Roberto Duran. In addition, he won the IBO title at cruiserweight. So that IBO title is not considered a major world title. It has to be either the WBC, the WBA Super, because a lot of people don't consider the WBA regular belt a major title. So what's his name? Tank Davis. Like a lot of Tank Davis's victories, the belts that he's won have been WBA's regular belts. So people don't consider that really a major title. I look at that belt a little bit different, but the WBO and the IBO and the IBC, I don't consider them major world titles. Otherwise, if that would have been considered a major world title, he would have been a 6th division champion. Orthodox means that you fight right-handed. So that means your left foot's in front, your right foot's in back, your left hand's in front, your right hand's in the back. That's orthodox. Southpaw means you fight left-handed, opposite. So in '81, so he beats Cuevas in 1980, and then he defends 4 times, and then he fights Sugar Ray. We already went over Sugar Ray, the fight with him and Sugar Ray. But at the time, he was the WBA welterweight champion. Sugar Ray was the WBC welterweight champion. Hearns was 32 wins and no losses with 30 knockouts, and Sugar Ray was 30-1 because he had lost to Duran. And then he went up to 154, and he for the junior. So super welterweight and junior middleweight's the same thing. It's 154 pounds, and he fought the three-time world champion Wilfredo Benitez, who was at the time 41 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, and they fought in New Orleans, and this was in December of '82, and he beat Benitez to take his belt. Then in 1985, he fights Marvelous Haglar. This time he went up to middleweight. But the fight only went 3 rounds, but I mean, the whole fight was nonstop action. You know what I mean? But Haglar ended up knocking him out. Okay, so keep in mind now. So he conquered already the welterweight title and the junior middleweight title, or super welterweight, whatever way you want to call it. So he has belts in those 2 divisions. Then he goes up to middleweight to fight Haglar, but Haglar wins, so he don't win a title, right? Then he jumps up to
light heavyweight, which is 175. So he skipped middleweight and super middleweight. So he skipped. Well, he fought Haglar, but he didn't win a belt, so he went up. So he, instead of him going to super middleweight 168, he goes even up further to 175, and he fights Dennis Andries, and he wins the WBC light heavyweight title with a 10-round stoppage at Cobo Hall in Detroit. Later that year, his four-round destruction of Juan Roldan, who was 63-2, to claim the vacant WBC middleweight title. So he went up. He skipped the super middleweight, and then he went up to light heavyweight, won a belt there. Then he comes back down to middleweight, and he wins there, right? And then he goes back, up to super middleweight. So he did things differently than most boxers. Most boxers they'll conquer one division at a time and go up. You know, he's going up, skipping a division, winning the title, coming back down 2 divisions, winning that title, and then back up a division to win another title. He won the WBO super middleweight title, making him the first boxer to win 5 world titles in 5 weight classes. And then the rematch happens with Leonard, and we know what happened there. It ended up being a draw. That was 89. And then the rest goes into the 90s, because he fought well into I think he stopped I think his last fight was he was still fighting in the 2000s. I think his last fight was 2005 or 2006. And that's why he didn't get into the Hall of Fame until 2010 or 12, whatever it is. You got to be retired, I think, 5 years in boxing. And he went out with a win on his last fight. It was against Shannon Landberg, which it was 2006. I had to look that up real quick. And so he had a long career, very long career he had. And, you know, back then, these guys were getting in the ring with real legitimate champions. You know what I mean? Real legitimate contenders, champions. You know, they fought. They went toe-to-toe. They didn't run. You know, that's why some of these fights always ended up in knockouts a lot of times, or multiple knockdowns during the fight. You know, it is what it is, you know. So definitely 2 of the greatest to ever do it. And I appreciate everybody that stopped in. John Cabrera, Tim Hennessy, Marky Mark, Crusted, JMSJ, X Canarsie X, Roscoe, and Phil H, whoever Phil H is. I think I got an idea who Phil H is. But I appreciate everybody stopping in. And again, if anybody and I appreciate everybody that's going to watch this video later after it's uploaded. And that being said, Big Lou tapping out.